Hello everyone, I'm the Enforcer, and welcome to the breaking news. Please make sure to like, comment, and subscribe and support us on Patreon, link in the description below. Today we have breaking news coming out of the Middle East, as the Islamic Republic of Iran is continuing to make wartime preparations and has announced that they are prepared to blockade and mine the Strait of Hormuz to stop the flow of oil out of the Middle East. Meanwhile, the United States of America is continuing to build up forces within the area, with significant air flights being conducted out of the United States of America with the hopes of further reinforcing and building up U.S. forces within CENTCOM's area of responsibility. Outside of that, the Russian Federation has also announced that they are prepared to evacuate all of their personnel and scientists out of the area of the Bushehr nuclear power plant, which are currently working on constructing a new reactor within the area. Outside of that, the Islamic Republic of Iran's government has also made it clear that they will be trying their best effort to give it a real shot, as they have also announced, according to the mayor of Tehran, that underground parking lots will be used as emergency bunkers in a wartime scenario, which is expected to be coming incredibly soon. We've also heard that the Islamic Republic of Iran will be conducting naval exercises, possibly with Russia and China, within the area of the Gulf of Oman and the Northern Arabian Sea. Meanwhile, inside of the Russian Federation, the armed forces of Ukraine appear to have been able to cause more damage than ever believed, as power blackouts are now gripping the outskirts of St. Petersburg. We've also seen power blackouts gripping Penza, and also on top of that, the Russian Federation, while dealing with significant power outages in multiple cities throughout the country, not just St. Petersburg and Penza, but also Belgrade and Murmansk, is announcing that they are still rejecting yet another peace deal, with the members of the Russian government like Ramzan Kadyrov completely opposing any form of an attempted negotiation with the state of Ukraine from this point onwards. The Republic of Belarus has also been able to receive a batch of 2 new Su-30SMs, which is an incredibly limited number considering that the Russian Federation is already dealing with wartime woes inside of their country. We've also seen inside of Europe that the Federal Republic of Germany is now going to be developing its own independent satellite detection system to be able to detect satellites outside of the US's intelligence and technological capabilities, while the Belgians have also announced through the European Union Parliament, along with the entirety of the European Union, that the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps is now officially a terrorist organization. Cuba is also feeling the weight of the United States coming against them, as it's now been announced that they most likely only have 15 to 20 days of oil left before the oil completely runs out and the very non-existent power grid within Cuba goes completely offline. We have all of this news to cover, and we're going to be making sure to get through each and every single bit of it here in this video, starting with our largest stories first, which are coming directly out of the Middle East. The Islamic Republic of Iran has been watching as the United States of America has been building up a significant force within the area, including the USS Abraham Lincoln Carrier Strike Group, along with a larger amount of U.S. Air Force assets that have also been deployed at the Al Adid Air Base, also several other air bases within Saudi Arabia, and the Muwafaq Air Base within the Kingdom of Jordan. Further U.S. flights are being conducted already over the course of this day, as we have been able to see a large number of KC-46 Pegasus tankers, mostly all gold 31, 32, 41, and 42, which are all currently flying out of the New England area of the United States and across the Atlantic, most likely towards the United Kingdom, to then carry on their flight towards the Middle East. We also saw near to the coast of Florida today that several KC-135 tankers were also taking off as well. Correction, that's actually a KC-46, most likely with some fighter aircraft or multi-roles in tow, maybe even likely F-35As. In general, there has been a humongous number of airlifts that have been conducted over the past 24 hours into the Middle East, including the WC-135R nuclear sniffer, which is currently at the Ramstein Air Base in Germany, but is expected to transit to the Middle East here soon, along with 4 refueling aircraft and 6 EA Growlers, which are suppression of enemy air defense and electronic warfare aircraft, and we've also been able to see that 9 C-17s, most likely carrying air defense batteries, have also flown out of the United States, generally from around the area of Fort Hood towards to the area of the Middle East. It's believed that these may have been carrying the THAAD missile defense systems that we've already heard about in prior days, still showing us the absolute size and scale of the U.S. airlift that's currently being conducted into the Middle East. While all of this has been going on, the Islamic Republic of Iran has been watching with a great deal of concern, considering that this force is largely a strike force being built up directly against their country. And for this reason, the Iranians have continued to threaten extreme measures to try and see that they can either put pressure on America's allies within the region to pressure us to back off, or to put enough pressure on the United States that they believe that an attack may be too costly in terms of munitions, as we have been able to hear an announcement today that the Iranians are warning that they they may possibly blockade the Strait of Hormuz, and they have also threatened all-out war with the entirety of the region. This video footage was published today from an Islamic Republic of Iran source, which generally appears to be stock footage of the U.S. Navy, while they speak about the threat to blockade the Strait of Hormuz to the international world. The Strait of Hormuz is an incredibly narrow passage between the Islamic Republic of Iran and the United Arab Emirates and Oman. The stretch is only about 30 miles wide at its greatest, and generally is a bottleneck between the areas of the Persian Gulf and the greater Indian Ocean out to the east. If the Islamic Republic of Iran was to mine this strait, it could cause significant damage to global oil markets, as a large amount of the oil currently produced in the Middle East would never be able to be transported outside of the region. This would also give us the understanding that the Islamic Republic of Iran is threatening the global economy at this point with further retaliatory action if the United States of America tries to conduct a war against them. We also are able to get additional detail that they've warned that they will be planning to run a drill next week that will include live fire exercises within the Strait of Hormuz, which once again is an incredibly important passageway. With it being an incredibly important passageway, and not only that, exceptionally narrow, it is believed that they will be conducting a live fire exercise within international waters to generally close off passage to oil tankers for the limited period of time that that military exercise is being conducted, largely conveying the threat that they could make that sort of an arrangement a permanent one if they would believe it necessary if the United States was to attempt strikes on the country. Still, that does not appear to be dissuading the United States, as we do already have counter forces in the area if the Iranians attempt to lay a minefield. Within the Bahrain Naval Station, there are 3 littoral combat ships of the USS Independence class that are already prepared for counter-mine warfare, and we also believe that there may be one SSGN, which is a nuclear-powered submarine within the area, but we're not really sure on that one. The LCSs don't add any strike capacity against the Islamic Republic of Iran, but they do provide anti-mine countermeasures within the area. The Independence-class LCS, and let me go and get one of those for y'all really quickly, right here. The Independence-class LCS is a fairly small sort of a corvette, if we were to describe it properly. Although, technically, the definition of this vessel is actually a littoral combat ship, which is very similar in size to that of a frigate. Nevertheless, these vessels are used generally in special operations, nothing that would be considered a actual surface combatant operation, say of an Arleigh Burke or a Ticonderoga class cruiser, and for that reason, these are actually well acclimated to anti-mine countermeasures, meaning that these vessels could enter the area of the Strait of Hormuz and attempt, most likely under heavy fire, to reopen the strait to commercial traffic, largely ridding the area of any sort of sea mines that the Iranians may deploy and trying to keep the passage open. However, one thing that is quite interesting, however, is that these vessels are currently moored at the area of the Bahrain Naval Station, and in prior military actions conducted by the United States against Iran last year, it was seen that the Bahrain Naval Station was completely evacuated before any forms of strikes were to be conducted. The reason for this is because the Persian Gulf, once the Strait of Hormuz is closed, is largely a barrel, and the Iranians can shoot at the fish in the barrel. We generally want to avoid that sort of a situation because if we are stuck in that area, there's no way for the U.S. Navy's ships, including these LCSs, to be able to escape Iranian fire at any given moment. Unlike the Carrier Strike Group, which can steam south further into the Arabian Sea and out of Iranian missile fire, these vessels would not be able to do that because they would have to try and run the gauntlet of the Strait of Hormuz, which would be even more dangerous than the Persian Gulf, with munitions most likely depleted by the time they tried to make a run for it. For this reason, we're still waiting to see that this naval station is evacuated, and we're pretty sure that these LCSs will be based out of another naval facility somewhere nearby, maybe even within the area of Oman or the or Saudi Arabia within the Red Sea, but we have a feeling that they're probably not going to be directly operated out of the Bahrain Naval Station. For now, that is the case, but that will most likely change the closer we get to strikes. We've also heard that the Iranians are trying to flex their muscles even a little bit more out of the Strait of Hormuz, as an announcement did come out today, according to Al Jazeera, that the Iranian Navy will conduct military exercises with China and Russia in the Sea of Oman and the Indian Ocean in the coming days. We do not know how accurate that information is, as we have not been able to hear of any Russian naval movements within this area, or for that matter, Chinese naval movements within this area. It seems that Chinese and Russian naval presence within the Middle East is highly limited at the moment, and we're not really sure where these vessels are going to be arriving from, because according to our information on the channel, we haven't really seen any of these ships nearby. it may be possible that that's just passed under our radar, but nevertheless, we have a feeling that that might just be an Iranian-only exercise with not really a large involvement by the Russians or the Chinese. We've also been able to see that the Russians are considering the situation to be incredibly strenuous this time around, as we have been able to hear from the Russian state news agency TASS that Russia is ready to evacuate its staff from Iran's Bushehr nuclear power plant if necessary. The Bushehr nuclear power plant is a nuclear power plant based out of the city of Bushehr, which you can see right here. This power plant currently has one operational nuclear reactor, and they're currently constructing a second nuclear reactor along with additional supporting buildings, which you can see over here. The Russian Federation has been heavily involved in the construction of the Bushehr nuclear power plant due to civilian nuclear scientists and also government personnel that have been working in this area helping the Iranians to build this facility. Apparently, the Russians are considering such a grave threat at the moment that the U.S. will conduct imminent strikes that they're actually announcing in advance that they are prepared to evacuate their personnel out of the area and basically remove them from any sort of a sticky situation that might evolve in the next coming days and weeks whenever U.S. strikes are conducted. Even further, the Iranians also appear to be pretty sure that no matter what, a war will be happening, as the mayor of Tehran, Alireza Zakani, has announced that underground parking lots and metro stations across the city will be transformed into war shelters in case of resumed hostilities with Israel and the United States. The civil preparedness within Iran is most likely precautionary, but still making it quite clear that they are ready to go into an armed confrontation with the United States of America, and it may even be backing up our statements that we've heard prior yesterday that the Islamic Republic of Iran is absolutely refusing to negotiate with the United States. This preparation would show that they believe that war is imminent, and therefore they must not be negotiating with the United States of America, because if they were negotiating with the United States and making any leeway, then these sorts of civil preparedness exercises would be entirely unnecessary. We've also heard that within the rest of the world, it doesn't really seem that the Iranians are gaining any favor, especially inside of Europe, as the threats to close the Strait of Hormuz by the IRGC and the continuous action over the decades of the IRGC and their reign of terror throughout the regions of the Middle East have led to the European Union today announcing that the IRGC is officially a terrorist organization, according to the European Union. This is a significant move, as this will open up the groundwork for the European Union to, as an official body, to leverage sanctions and any other form of punitive damages against Iran and the IRGC for their continued actions inside of the region. Moving us on out of that news pertaining to the Middle East, we have also seen that the United States has apparently put some pressure on the Cubans to a significant degree, as we're now hearing that they only have about 15 to 20 days of oil left after the United States has largely tried to force the Venezuelans into not providing any oil to Cuba. We have seen that while the Venezuelan government is starting to pose a lot more resistance to U.S. interests over the past few days, it appears that the general lack of oil shipments that have been seen for the past 3 weeks has started to really make a mark on Cuba, and it appears that their oil reserves are dangerously low and most likely soon to fail. If that is the case, we'll most likely see that the power grid, which only exists in Havana, mind you all, will cease to exist inside of Cuba. And I'm of course exaggerating a little bit, there are a couple of other larger cities within Cuba that do have working electricity and do have a connection to the power grid, but it's wildly small compared to the majority of the population. That means that if the power goes out, it's going to be unfortunate, but I mean, the honest truth is that basically the entire island doesn't have any electricity anyways, so it won't really be that much of an impact, but it will start to put some pressure on the Cuban government. Moving us on out of Cuba and back into Europe, we've also heard that the worsening relations between Europe and the United States has led to further strategic actions being made by the Europeans to see that they largely start to become independent of the United States in most every measure, as the Federal Republic of Germany has announced that they plan on building their own satellite-based missile detection system, which will reduce reliance on the United States, and citing urgent threats and uncertainty over the United States' reliability. That was according to statements that were made by the Germans to Financial Times, and it is showing us that right now there is still even further consequences being created due to the worsening rift between Europe and the United States as the Europeans continue to move towards a more independent approach to their national security interest and even economic pursuits as well. Inside the war in Ukraine, things have not really been going all too good, particularly for the Russians. The Russian Federation has seen that not only is the city of Belgrade home to 330,000 people without power, the city of Murmansk, home to 140,000 people, is also without power, and we've now gotten news today that there is an energy blackout that's happened near St. Petersburg in the city of Sestroretsk. This is incredibly close to the St. Petersburg city area, And as y'all can all see, a power blackout has also enveloped this area, which is home to about another 170,000 people. Additionally, the city of Penza, also home to about 200,000 people, has had a complete energy blackout again as well after Ukrainian attack knocked out the power grid. Larger parts of the Russian Federation appear to be going completely without power at this point, and the Russian Federation has also shown that they're having incredible difficulty getting the lights back on in places like Belgorod, Murmansk, and others. This is letting us know that damage from Ukrainian drone attacks on energy infrastructure is now becoming cumulative and not as sporadic, at least in terms of the amount of time and the amount of damage that it causes, because these power blackouts are largely unfixable now from what we can tell by the Russians. It seems that the Russians now no longer possess the ability to be able to repair their power grid and keep it on as often as they did back in the past, and so this means that the Ukrainian attacks from this point on will be causing generally irreparable damage to Russia's war industry, its civilian infrastructure, and not only that, the electrical grid directly. The Russians are also having an incredibly difficult time keeping up with their contracts that they have for arms procurement and sales to other countries, with the Republic of Belarus announcing that they've gotten a whopping 2, and that's right, 2 brand new Su-30SMs. Now, this is kind of a little underwhelming. I mean, I think a lot of people can kind of get that idea. 2 Su-30 SM-2s is only 2 fighter jets. That's not going to change a war for anyone, much less for Belarus, which generally doesn't even have an army. And we believe that the reason why the batch number is so low, literally being only 2, is because the Russians do not possess the ability to produce these in any large number at all. As a matter of fact, this is just wildly low. I mean, the batch of 2 aircraft may as well be artisanally making each one of these things from the ground up. It's absolutely abysmal, and it is showing us that the Russian economy and the Russian war industries are really having a hard time at this point keeping up with the strain of just normal operations in the midst of the Ukrainians hammering them nightly. Even in the midst of multiple power blackouts inside of Russia and the clear signs that the Russian war industry is going at a snail's pace due to the strain that's being caused on them by the war, the Russian Federation has rejected yet another peace deal, according to the Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov. He stated that the comments appear to refer to a proposed energy ceasefire, which Peskov spoke on earlier but declined to comment on. Now, Lavrov has come in and stated that the ceasefire sought by the Ukrainians is absolutely unacceptable, and they will not be searching for a ceasefire or maybe even an actual peace. Ramzan Kadyrov then insisted that they completely demand that no form of negotiation go forward. And we have heard from Ramzan in this statement here, while he's suffering from whatever the hell Kadyrov suffers from, but he stated, "I believe the war must be carried through to the end. Negotiations after everything. That has to be done. I'm against negotiations." That was the statement by Ramzan Kadyrov today, once again showing that there is significant pushback inside of Russia to any form of negotiations with Ukraine, and they are still looking for unconditional surrender from the Ukrainians and an absolute victory for the Russian Federation, which will once again never be achieved, and for that point, the war will go on. But with that in mind, folks, I hope you all have enjoyed the news over the course of the day. We're always, of course, entirely honored and extremely appreciative to be able to cover this news for each and every single one of y'all, and we hope that we found that this news video is up to that normal standard. If y'all have enjoyed this video, please make sure to subscribe, and also make sure to like and comment. We love to know that folks enjoy these videos, and also we thank you all so much for waiting around for another news day that's big enough for us to be able to make a short war video. But with that in mind, folks, we thank you all once again for watching, and also if you would like to support us on Patreon, you can. The link is in the description below, and we always have to thank our Patreon supporters massively, along with our super chatters on the live streams, as these folks help us to be able to fund these operations here behind the scenes, so that way we can make these sorts of videos possible. But nevertheless, a humongous thanks to each and every one of y'all once again, and with that, we will see you all in the next one.